Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I'm doing my PhD thesis about the appearance of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in Europe, and I would like to ask you about how you incorporated the elements of Vaishnava culture into your life after you joined ISKCON.
How?
You incorporated the Vaishnava culture into your life.
You mean, was it easy or difficult?
Yes, easy, difficult. What were the difficulties for you?
I don't really think that it was very difficult. You know, at my time, in my time, Indian things and so on, that was the vogue. So Indian clothes, Indian food, incense, yoga. Well, not yoga. Yoga didn't come into a fad as then, but Indian books and yoga gurus. That was all very. Attractive to everybody, and in Krishna consciousness, that was, just for us something else that was representing that. And then as we got involved, then it was sort of natural. Even wearing devotee clothes, I took that more as a privilege rather than something that was difficult, some obstacle. So that was, generally speaking, that was what Krishna consciousness was also. So when devotees decided to move in a temple, then this is what it is. So if you decided to move in, then tilak, dhoti, whatever it is that we had to eat, whatever the lifestyle was, that was a par for the course. You already bought into that. When you moved in, it wasn't so much of a shock.
What was difficult for you in the temple life?
I don't know if it was a difficulty. Probably the most difficult thing to adjust to was communal living. And I mean really communal living, not that we're living in a community, but that everybody's in one place. The brahmacharis are in one place, they don't have their own room, they don't have their own bed, it's all together, everybody's in one place in the same bathroom, everyone's in one place in the same temple room, everyone's in one place in the same prasadam area, or where we take prasadam. The only room I had to myself was going out on Sankirtan. That's when I was sort of alone. And I was more or less a loner before coming to Krishna consciousness. So adjusting to that sense of, and I think that sense of communal living, absolute communal living, which Prabhupada was very much aware of. Prabhupada lived like that also with the devotees. So he also lived with them. He may have not slept in the same room, but Prabhupada lived in the same apartment. He used the same bathroom. He was amongst many, sometimes dozens of devotees. And Prabhupada preferred to live in a temple. It was just in the very, very beginning, when there was nothing, that Prabhupada would live in a rented apartment. Otherwise, once we had temples, there would always be a place for Prabhupada. Prabhupada would stay there, even though it was maybe relatively austere. So that was and that is, I think, an issue for that which very few devotees can do that for they want their own space. So now here in Budapest Temple, the devotees have their own rooms. Not four devotees have their own rooms, but at least that gives some sense of privacy. And then beyond that, it does become a reason why a lot of devotees sort of take the grihastha life. They think, now I'm going to have my own place. But obviously, once they have kids, they don't have their own place anymore. So that's quite a challenge for devotees, that type of lifestyle. I've seen that the Indian people tend to adopt to that better. They're more austere by nature. They're austere. At least they were more austere. Nowadays, they're not so much.
At that time, devotees didn't have their own things, so the concept of private ownership was not there in the ISKCON. Devotees just have, you said, toothbrush and that's it. They shared clothing and everything else. So
you didn't have your own toothpaste. Even the toothpaste was communal. Everyone took out of the same bowl. So salt mixed with mustard oil.
So this is very unique for us, because nowadays in ISKCON we live differently, even with the ashrams.
Yes. Vairagya vidya and bhakti yoga. So vairagya vidya, knowledge and renunciation, both things need to be there in order for bhakti to be fresh. So the question is, how much vairagya and which vairagya is primary and which vairagya is secondary? So which vairagya can be adapted according to yukta vairagya, and which vairagya stays. So for regulative principles or austerities that you don't compromise. Toothbrush, toothpaste, whether you sleep on the floor or you sleep on the bed, these things I would take to be really secondary and not essential. I always emphasize devotees to have temple life and live in a temple. And one reason for that is so that they learn actually what's essential vairagya. Because if they don't, like essential vairagya is getting up early in the morning. If they've never done that, I don't think there's many people who are getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning who've never lived in a temple. And I say that often, that the way devotees live outside the temple who get initiated in my day, well, not to speak of getting kicked out, they would have never been allowed in. So now people who were never allowed in the past are getting initiated now and doing deity worship in temples and so on. Not everybody, but I'd wager, if I was a wagering man, I'd wager that the majority. So, but if you don't get up at the proper time, then you won't chant your rounds properly because you won't have enough time. And if you don't chant your rounds properly, then your Krishna consciousness is not going to be the real thing. So, what's essential renunciation and essential principles of life that you can't compromise, and what can you? There have been sort of many attacks on the 4 regulative principles, especially illicit sex, not during Prabhupada's time, but after Prabhupada's time. So there have been devotees who proposed that, this is not, no illicit sex means just no sex outside of marriage. That's one version. And it still goes around. And then others have different other versions that we should just scrap it all together. So that's it's essential. It's essential because Prabhupada never backed off on this. People may be living outside the temple, but they never, and there were devotees who were living outside of the temple, but Srila Prabhupada expected that those same principles to be kept. But other things he would be more free about, especially as he started thinking about varnashram more.
I think that Srila Prabhupada's disciples were very serious according to follow the Vaishnava culture in Srila Prabhupada's time. But nowadays in ISKCON, many younger devotees think that Vaishnava culture not so important as sadhana or anything else. Am I wrong or am I right in this, that Srila Prabhupada disciples in the early days were very serious following the Vaishnava culture in their everyday life?
Well, we followed what Prabhupada said. We had the famous study what Vaishnava culture was about. So it was only after, and that's why devotees wanted, Prabhupada wanted devotees to come to India. And initially that's why Prabhupada wanted devotees to associate with his godbrothers, so they find out something about Vaishnava culture. Because Prabhupada was coming to the West, he was having to adapt and adopt his own life to so many things. So how is it that, an ashram is meant to look like? Anyway, that had some problems with associating with Prabhupada's godbrothers, and so that didn't work very well. But there's two things. One thing is following Vaishnava culture and following Srila Prabhupada. So this idea of, what did we do when Srila Prabhupada was present? That, we didn't go in the temple without washing our feet. We didn't take prasadam without washing our feet and mouth. So, and similarly afterwards. Whether it was Vaishnava culture or not, for us was a detail. Prabhupada said it. And therefore we did it. So it was Prabhupada culture. And I think that most of my godbrothers and godsisters are well aware of those things. Is it absolutely essential that devotees wash their feet before they go into the temple room? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But the thing is that even if you start sacrificing these secondary things that aren't so essential, but when does it start to knock on effect onto the primary things and start changing other things? Because then you get into a mood of change. And Prabhupada's whole thing was just don't change it, just do what I tell you to do. And he said, this is your disease, is that you always want to change things. So that then becomes a real challenge. Of course, we live in a world of yukta vairagya, when we're meant to be engaging everything in Krishna's service, but it's a two-edged sword, and it can work to our detriment as well, if we're not particularly qualified. We see, things have changed. Sort of the guardians of what Prabhupada said and what Prabhupada wanted are really dying, and that is hopefully being passed on to next generations. Now, how seriously do the next generations take those things? We took it seriously because there's nothing else, and because we were also in a different mood. We were in a revolutionary mood. We were revolting against what was going on in the outside world. That revolutionary mood doesn't exist. Devotees generally are not revolting against the outside world. They're wanting to figure out how to integrate in the outside world. And that's part of the problem of maintaining the culture that Srila Prabhupada gave us. is that we're looking for alternative, whereas now devotees may more be looking for how to integrate. Okay, that's good for today.